Ready to go, off and running. In fact, on this National Racing Report, things quiet at the Big A. In fact, we are dark through this coming Thursday with the first race post of 1:20 p.m. But we have the New York Claiming Championship Series, the first ever, coming up shortly. And spring is in the air. It's the MIG, Richard Migliore, Andy Serling, Jason Blewitt alongside. A quiet weekend, guys, but it was good to be a racing fan with a couple of champions returning at Oaklawn Park.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's always something to look at, especially this time of year, and we saw some very interesting races to talk about. It wasn't the big weekend that we had last weekend.
Well, it's hard to sustain that kind of level of excitement going forward, but I thought there were a couple of interesting performances and certainly always something to talk about.
Well, American Pharoah made his 3-year-old debut, highly anticipated. The eyes of the racing world fixed upon rainy Hot Springs Oaklawn Park on Saturday in the $750,000 Rebel Stakes. He's the 4 and was off awkwardly.
And you could see there American Pharoah kind of did that little misstep, dipsy-doodle, picked himself up, and then just absolutely galloped into the first turn. Now, I know they said he pulled the shoe up. I don't think it had any bearing on anything. He got everything his own way, Andy.
He really did. I mean, it's a perfect race for a first start of a campaign. Not a perfect race for the first start of a 2-start campaign going to the Kentucky Derby, because he got absolutely nothing out of it. It was a paid workout. Put it to compare, all 3 stakes that we'll see at Oaklawn were 1 mile and 1/16, Richie. The other 2 races that were 1 wire to wire, they went 23-4, 48-1, 112-2, 24-3, 48-4, 13-4. This race went 24-2, 49-3, 115-1. He was crawling.
He was crawling. You could see he was relishing the going, just kind of running over the top of the ground. And he basically ran 1/8 of a mile. I mean, he finished nicely, and which he's supposed to do. No surprise there. He does have a beautiful way of going. You got to give him that. My question to you, and I know how I feel about this, is it he's getting these soft trips because he's that talented, or he's just getting soft trips?
Well, part of it is he's a very talented horse. He was meeting nobody that's going anywhere in major races this year behind him in there. And he did beat some very good horses in California last time, but he was able to dictate the pace. I think it's been a function of him being very talented and being able to dictate the pace in moderate paces. This is not going to happen in the Kentucky Derby.
No, the Kentucky Derby is run always too fast to pace for the distance. They're going to go probably 20 lengths faster up on the pace. He's never shown that he can come from behind horses. He's never really had dirt in his face. What's going to happen? Like I like to say, he can throw a punch. What's going to happen when he has to take a punch?
No, I think that's a big, big question. And, you know, at some point, if he's my horse, I want to experiment with him. And listen, they're playing, as you said to me earlier, with the hand they were dealt, that forced him to start his 2-3-year-old campaign later than they wanted to. And because of that, they don't have a chance to experiment. And you can say, these are prep races. They're big races, but the big dances, the Triple Crown races, and then races like the Travelers later in the year, and the big races in the fall. This is the time to learn things about your horse, and they're stretching his legs, which is fine being the first start of the year, but it's not going to help him going forward.
Well, and how do you find out? You're not going to try to experiment next time. And you think back many years ago, Honest Pleasure, they decided they were going to try to rate him in the Bluegrass. Now, he won the Bluegrass, but it was a very uninspiring performance because Braulio Baeza had a fight with him. They're not going to get the opportunity to try that with this horse, and then, like Honest Pleasure, they're going to find out that maybe he's not a horse that can run at horses as effectively.
No, and this is a Derby where there's some real potential players out there, kind of top-heavy with some good horses.
Including one from the same trainer, Bob Baffert, who's got Dortmund, who's unbeaten.
And a Doris Dortmund, who so far has been doing his running the front end. You and I sort of feel like he'll be better from behind. But once again, when is he going to learn to see if he can rate? The Kentucky Derby may not be the best race to try to learn if your horse can rate.
Well, no, it's the worst spot to pick. You're supposed to have all of the I's dotted and T's crossed by then. You want to experiment. Now, the one thing I will give Dortmund, though, at least he shows he'll fight for it.
Yeah.
He's been in a dogfight, and you like that. Now, obviously, there's other things, other questions that need to be answered.
Yeah, there are others. And it's funny you say all this stuff, and then you get back to the Zayat Stables horse El Kabir, and he's gotten all that stuff. I mean, John Terranova has put him through all the steps you want going towards the Triple Crown. Now, ultimately, he may not be good enough, but he feels like the most seasoned 3-year-old heading to those races.
Well, that is an interesting point, too, because obviously American Pharoah is the preferred son, so to speak. He has a world of ability, but he hasn't had the same seasoning as El Kabir. You would like to see if they had flip-flopped, if this horse had shown the same kind of dimension.
No kidding. Now, the Arkansas Derby, April 11th, Bob Baffert's put up some big numbers at Oaklawn. He's won 5 of the last 6 Rebels, and we'll see what they do with this horse. It does sound like, as of now, the Arkansas Derby on April 11th is where American Pharoah will go next.
Well, they have to make a choice. Are they going to go 3 weeks to their next start and then 4 weeks to the Derby, or 4 weeks to their next start and 3 weeks to the Derby? We'll see which one they choose. They've got another horse in their barn named Mr. Z, who's quietly run some pretty good races, and he's sitting on a win somewhere. They've got a pretty good hand going to the Derby, however you look at it.
Yeah, they're strong. They have bench strength.
And less than 48 days out from the first Saturday in May. Hard to believe we're nearing and entering the final round of Kentucky Derby preps. More on that as the show progresses. But we're top-heavy, at least off the bat, and rightfully so. Saturday was a big day out at Oaklawn Park. They're prepped for their major races a bit later in the meet. And here we have the Razorback, which is the prep, of course, for the Oaklawn Park Handicap. This turned out to be a very good race over a track labeled good. Looked more, at this point, muddy to me, but the 2 Grays threw it down and put on a pretty good show.
And we talked about those paces of the 3 races, and this was far and away the fastest one, especially going to the half, but even the first quarter. And these horses stuck around 1-2. Midnight Hawk ran a lot better than he did when you and I were at Santa Anita a few weeks ago, Richie, where he was kind of a disappointing winner. And the horse who beat him race day, he's putting up some pretty big numbers.
I thought it was an impressive performance by both horses, but I also think it underscored that the track was playing kind to horses that possess speed and inside position. I mean, Midnight Hawk, it looked as though turning for home, race day, was going to drown him. He was going to leave him 3-4 lengths, and he never caved in and kept fighting. And I think it was his gameness and the racetrack.
Well, and they drew off from the field. I mean, they were, about 3 lengths in front of the horses with 5/16 to go. They were 5 in front, top of the stretch, and they ended up being over 7 in front of the wire. They were running away, and they were running away some pretty good horses that may not have shown up with their best races, but this was a horse race.
Yeah, no, it really was a horse race. I mean, right on Curlin, he was disappointing. Tapiture off the bench, I thought, was a bit disappointing. But these 2 horses delivered a terrific performance, and I think as we're going to look forward and watch the Aziri, they kind of ran 1-2 around the track in there as well.
They did. Now, maybe in both situations, these proved to be the best horses. I hate to see big race days like this run in wet tracks.
Yeah.
It just feels like it always opens the question up of whether or not we saw true performances. I think we saw relatively true performance from the top 2 that maybe they like the going, but they're good horses. But I don't feel like the ones behind them gave their true performances. And I think you have to extend it to American Pharoah that might have exaggerated his win a little bit as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. You could see visually, like American Pharoah and like these 2 horses, just how well they're getting over the ground. It's not like they're going down into the track. They're running over the top of the ground. And I think you hear that expression a lot in Europe when they race on soft turf and what have you. Horses that are really handling it, they say, are running over the top of the ground.
Well, it seems to be the case. Now, race day's run well at Gulfstream. He's run well at Oaklawn. This is a horse that Todd Pletcher took over the training. He's relatively lightly raced. And I'll tell you something. He can extend these performances to other racetracks and come to New York. He's another big player in the handicap division.
He is. For a barn that we're not taking up a charity case for Todd Pletcher, but a couple or at least one major defection over the last week in Constitution, who at least for now is a little banged up. We hope he's back soon and he's okay. And who knows what we're going to get with Palace Malice if he does indeed make his 5-year-old debut.
No, I agree. And listen, it's not even about who you're rooting for. Not that we're rooting against other people or not. I just think we can all agree we like good horses.
And have all of them in one race. I mean, that's what makes this game exciting, when you get good horses and they settle it out on the racetrack.
No, I agree. And, I just hate to say it, but it does keep coming back to Belmont Stakes Day. And obviously the Met Mile is a race that everybody is pointing for in some fashion, with the big purse, the Grade 1, all the prestige, and it just keeps getting more and more exciting.
$1.5 million on the line in that Metropolitan Handicap, BelmontStakes.com. And, of course, both Grandstand and Reserve Clubhouse tickets are still on sale at BelmontStakes.com. As we wrap up the action for now at Oaklawn Park, race 3 of 3. It is Untappable, her 4-year-old debut. She was a gritty loser, but she lost the race.
Yeah, now the horse who beat her had a real tactical advantage, but it's not like Untappable is slow. John Velasquez did a perfect job of letting the other horse clear, getting outside her in the clear like Untappable likes to be, Richie. And at the end of the day, Untappable looked like she had her beaten, and she just couldn't get her.
Well, I think it's probably a function of her maybe needing the race. I mean, she ran up there like she was going to win. You expected her to win at that point, and I think she got a little bit tired. You saw her before the start. She was a bit fractious in the gate. And sometimes when they're that keen, they expend a lot of nervous energy. And once Johnny got her in the clear, she kind of came off their bridle. But you saw she was a bit keen into the turn until he got her in the clear. And let's give the winner a little bit of credit. If we go back to her last start, she was the only one, and we talked about
it that day. You're right.
That she was part of that pace, and she still hung around to the finish. So she's not a bad filly in her own right.
No, she's not. Absolutely. And listen, we could use competition in this division. It's possible the Untappable of last year could run roughshod over this division. If she does, so be it. But we like the competition. And in fairness, as you were alluding to, Steve Atkinson's barn has a record, especially in dirt routes, of having horses need a race or two before they get to their best. And once again, that's why they call them preps.
Well, exactly. I'm sure their main focus of the Oaklawn meeting is the Apple Blossom. That's a grade 1. This was a good place to get started. I'm sure they wanted to win. It just was maybe the screws weren't tightened as much. And actually, I called Gold Medal Dancer a filly. She's a 5-year-old mare and was very game. You got to give it to her.
I mean, on the turn, and you guys said I was wrong, and you were all right. I thought Untappable was going to win by 5 or 6
Well,
points.
she was just cruising in hand with Johnny. It looked like she would take Gold Medal Dancer at any time Johnny asked Untappable to go.
I agree, and she just couldn't get to her. And I'll tell you something. Mufajah, who finished third in here, actually ran very well. When you consider, you look at the races we were talking about, and the good point that you made about the track being kind to speed, you had a relatively paceless race, and she made a big wide move for third. We like to see Danny Pites get a little bit of love.
Yeah, and if she gets a more fair racetrack and a legitimate pace to run at, she's shown she has the ability to beat Gold Medal Dancer, and Gold Medal Dancer just beat Untappable. So obviously she's got some quality to her as well, and like you said, we do root for Danny.
And I'll tell you something, you look at this division, and I think every horse is keeping an eye on Untappable, and all the trainers want to see her vulnerable. And the Phipps is a big $1 million race. Second's $200,000, third is $100,000, another Belmont Stakes Day race. And I'll tell you something, if Untappable loses in the Apple Blossom, the whole world is going to want to come and take her on in the Phipps.
We will have a full gate in the Phipps.
Including perhaps a filly by Affirmative who's trained out in California by Craig Lewis, who's going to put on quite a show when we come back from this first time out on the Racing Report. We're back here at the Big A on this edition of the National Racing Report. Winter is over, gray skies this Sunday morning as we tape the Racing Report, but it's cozy and warm in the studio. We hope you're doing okay wherever you are. We're glad you have you with us. It's Jason, Andy, the MIG, and let's get on to the races, guys, out in Southern California. We've got a couple from Santa Anita, beginning with the Santa Margarita for older fillies and mares, and any way you slice it, this was just a big, big blowout win for Warren's Veneta.
My favorite thing about doing this show is it forces us to be paying attention to big racing all around the country. And I just don't think if we weren't doing this show, I don't think that any of us would have realized what a neat horse Warren's Veneta is.
She really is. And to think about, she kind of has that head down way of going, a long loping stride. She's wide every step of the way, and she just drowned the field when Tyler Bays allowed her to march on.
Yeah, I think we saw some disappointing performances behind her. Obviously, the leader, Casado, was one of the favorites, finished distant last, but even Dame Dorothy. And I know we're all fans of Dame Dorothy, horse for Bobby Flay, but she's a nice horse that's done well around here. She was struggling, but man, Warren's Veneta, she felt like she was running in a completely different race than everybody else, Richie.
She really did, and it's interesting. We were talking, earlier about the Phipps on Belmont Day. Warren's Veneta is very accomplished at 2 turns, but with her style, her stride, I guarantee you she would love more of a 1-turn race because she could gallop into that rhythm the way she does, and obviously she likes being outside. I think Belmont Park would really suit her.
You think about the fact that with the long run down the backstretch, you normally get at least a fair, if not a pretty quick pace, and she could just drop back, not worry about losing ground on the turns. I mean, this race, as you pointed out, 3 wide in the first turn, 4 wide in the second turn. I mean, she didn't have anything go her way, particularly in this race, except for the fact that she's an hour and a half better than these horses.
Yeah, and when she's looping the field here, she's pricking her ears, kind of enjoying herself. She's not nearly all in, and I think she's a lot better than I gave her credit for previously.
And she's improving, too. It seems like maybe you underestimated her to begin with, and not only is she good, she seems to be stepping up her game this campaign with each subsequent start. This was her 3rd consecutive victory, her first ever Grade 1 score. And how about that? A good horse can come from anywhere. She's a Calbred by a $1,000 stallion in affirmative who's now banked about $700,000.
Tell you what, there's a couple of very, you know, we talk about the New York breds a lot. Well, there's a couple of very good Calbreds out there right now.
They really are, and her mother's name is More Calbred. Maybe that's what I say, More Calbreds. But you know, you think about the California breeding program, and they don't have nearly as many stallions in the state as we do here in the state of New York. But with this kind of success, obviously California Chrome and now Lawrence Veneta, maybe it'll help boost their breeding program. This mare is very good, and I find that interesting as well. Another 5-year-old mare that's actually in the best form of her life. It's nice to see these horses stick around to when they're fully developed.
No question about it. That's one of the reasons I think we're seeing more good horses is these horses are getting a chance on the racetrack.
Tyler Bays with the winning ride from that outside post as we head to our next race. In fact, we come right home here to the Big A. A sloppy, rainy, windy Saturday, and let's not forget the fog rolled in just as the horses were getting to the starting gate in Saturday's featured 4th race, the 75th correction. They're off. Travis Stone had a couple of wisecracks up in the booth, and it was a good thing we had some trackers, but I'll send it to you guys as they enter the far turn.
I'm just glad that Travis got at least one day to call here in the old fog at the Big A and to experience what's that like. But I know Richie has some thoughts, some very good thoughts about this race.
Yeah, Bridgehampton is a filly or mare now that has shown no ability to rate. Even when she makes the lead, a lot of horses will settle on the lead. She just runs through the bridle and runs off. And I think Air of Distinction being put to the chase, going after her.
She's too wide. She's outside.
Yeah, she's outside. Basically, you have to ride the race like Bridgehampton is not there and ride like you're on the lead. Don't pay any attention to her.
He's into her now.
And wait until she comes back to you. Don't go after her, because if she beats you wire to wire because she runs hard every step of the way, then she was just the best horse. By going after her, you set yourself up to be picked off late, and that's what happened.
No, Richie, I think that is a great way to look at this race, because he was going after the turn when you could see it fairly well, and it took away her closing punch, and she loses a dirty photo, 3 heads at the wire. And the other horses are brought more into the race because she was aggressively ridden instead of just cruising up towards the front. Let's give some love to Mamduha, a horse that I never liked. She's now 5 or 6 lifetime. She was a day short of a year off of a layoff. Kieran McLaughlin and his barn do an amazing job of bringing horses back off a layoff. It was not a fast race. It got an 81 buyer, and judging by their races, it deserved it. But you know what? To get her to come back against better horses than she's ever raced against, even if Air of Distinction should have won and she finished 2nd, this was still a tremendous job.
Oh, it really was. I mean, a masterful job of training horses off a layoff. And this filly has a nose for the wire. She knows how to get there. She's a winner. Now, how good she is going forward, we'll find out. But you got to admire how she finds a way to get it done.
No, I agree. And, you know, this is one of these horses, it's a counter-argument. You talk about faster horses and speed figures, and she's just too slow on paper time and time again. I was joking on Twitter after the race saying that she must hypnotize the horses in the gate into running slowly. But at the end of the day, she finds a way to win, and there's something to be said for that, a lot to be said
And there's something to be said for an operation. Now, granted, she's owned and bred by Shadwell. They support. Kieran has left a steady string.
I agree.
On a regular basis, his horses have run all winter long on the inner track, and I think it's a feather in the cap, and it's good to see them out there on the inner track.
I think you've seen it a lot from him. You've seen it from Chad Brown. You're seeing Clement bringing some horses up a little earlier. You've seen Todd Pletcher with some good horses,
Hutchins
too.
brought a few
Mike
back.
Hutchins bringing them back. These guys are realizing it's not so easy down in Florida. The purses are better up here, and I think that is only going to increase over time.
Well, and I'm a very strong advocate of, if you race here through the summer months, you have to support the program year-round. When we need the support is in the winter months, and you have to basically know where your bread is buttered. This is New York racing. You got to support it.
Right. As long as otherwise, it's not. Listen, they support us a lot in the summer. We're not trying to be hard on them, and they help us fill races in important times as well.
Of course.
But you can't just cherry pick the best time of the year. And the truth is, the winter may be the best time of the year for some of them because the purses are still very, very good.
Big pots here at the Big A, and that Grade 2 $200,000 Aqueduct Distaff is on Saturday, April 18th. Maybe we get that correction rematch down the road on the main track in the middle of April. Month away from that race. I know it's hard to believe, but Gulfstream Park is where it's at. 3-year-old fillies, and maybe down the line, a couple of these horses might run in the Acorn on Belmont Day. Stay with us.
They're off in the Belmont Stakes.
Start your summer at the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival. 3 days of exciting racing action. $10 million on the line. Live music, entertainment, food vendors, and more. Get your tickets today.
3 days, 17 stakes, $10 million on the line. The June 6, 147th running of the Belmont Stakes. Tickets are on sale now at BelmontStakes.com. Reserve Clubhouse, Grandstand, can't go wrong. Third longest, oldest leg of the Triple Crown. And look, guys, we're just 48 days from the start of the Triple Crown Series. Can't wait to get over to Belmont Park.
And you watch these shows, the racing report every week, and you see all these good horses. If you want to see them in the flesh, there's one day you better be at the racetrack.
Definitely.
Is there any better feeling than being at Belmont Park when the weather's good and seeing those kind of horses parading around right in front of you?
No, it's almost too exciting to even think about.
Right,
now.
and when they turn for home, the roar of the crowd, the building's just shaking. It's just the best. But let's get on to the action down at Gulfstream Park, and they ran the Any Limit Stakes, a 75K purse as the fourth race for an ungraded 75K stake. This race came up very, very salty.
I agree. We saw some good horses, and Corey Lannery does what he has to do. He has to send his horse hard from the inside, or else he's not going to get the right trip, and I like this ride.
You know, I go back to, I think about that movie Wall Street when he says greed is good. Aggression is good. Hold your position, go forward, and make sure you give your horse an opportunity to use their stride.
Absolutely. Listen, when you get dealt that inside post, you cannot allow it to make you a victim. You've got to be aggressive. But it turned out it worked out fine. They ran hard the first quarter, no doubt about it. They ran hard, but she ran hard the whole way. And the horse who's third is actually a co-favorite. Getting a perfect trip, it didn't matter.
No, it didn't matter. Like, to me, when I was riding, it always kind of simplified things. If I had a horse that possessed any speed and I got the inside post, I'm going. Now you guys figure it out.
Well, I'll be honest with you, and I'm not saying this just because you're sitting here. In fact, Travis and I were talking about the other day in the subway. You were one of the great speed riders we had in New York. I mean, obviously Cordero, but, you know, I mean, you rode together. He was around before you. But I don't think there's a speed rider in New York that has the same instincts that you do.
Well, honestly, you bring up Angel Cordero. That was who I learned from. You would watch it and you'd go, well, that makes sense. That works. And obviously it worked here. I don't know why people are afraid of allowing horses to be fast.
And yet we see constantly horses reminding us that being aggressive yesterday with the New York bred Breaking the Fever, a horse that we kept saying, why does he keep reining this horse and strangling him? Now he's been gunning the lead, and he's got to win in a second since then. Horses that are naturally fast shouldn't be hindered.
Well, and I think you take more energy out of them. Inhibiting the stride, a horse going faster comfortably is going to last longer than a horse that you're fighting with his head's up.
It's not how fast you're going, it's how you're going fast. Have you ever heard that before?
I think the other point, though, of that, Richie, is that it's a rider's job to make his horse comfortable. I mean, a lot of horses you ride won't be fast enough to win. That's just the nature of the game. But you have a job to get your horse comfortable, and a speed horse is not comfortable rating, especially if you ride a horse and you learn once or twice the horse doesn't want to rate, then you've got to go. And if it doesn't work out by going, then so be it, because you know it's not going to work out the other way.
Right, you play to their strength, and that's all you can do is give your horse his best chance.
Right. And by the way, Dale Roman's the trainer of Taylor S. Corey Lannery, as you guys noted, the nice ride. She's a filly by Medaglia d'Oro. He had 2 stakes wins this past week, and also the sire of Gold Medal Dancer, standing for $125K.
We'll see plenty of Dale, and we look forward to it, and he'll be running his horses
and
a lot of places, including New York.
And perchance just didn't run well. I know we got to go, but she did not put in a good effort as the beat 9-5 favorite. We wrap things up, second and final stake down at Gulfstream Park. Race 11, Fast and Furious. We go 5 on the turf in the 75K Silks Run, and Bold Thunder would not beat an eye.
Power Alert, actually, would not be a lot. He was the heavy favorite. He got the clear outside trip. I think Richie feels the second horse might have been best.
Yeah, I just don't think she was ever in a comfortable position when they turned for home.
Pink, the pink horse.
Yeah, the horse in the pink. And,
right.
When they turn for home, the horse in the lead steps off the rail, and Joel Rosario kind of steadies wrong, waiting for it to really blow open. I think if you put yourself in that position, you have to fully commit and blow through there. Once you allow that horse to keep it tight on you, now you're going to see there's space. You've got to absolutely commit. It's like the difference between bacon and eggs. The chicken's involved, the pig's committed. Commit. When he didn't, now it allowed this other horse to get the jump on him, and now even when he gets in there, now he's got the other horse to contend with, and his filly's running a bit tentative.
And also, it really allows the other horse to get over on him a little bit and move in a path when the speed horse drops back.
Oh, absolutely. But now if he had been more aggressive when that spot did open. Now, listen, let's be fair. I mean, you've got Paco Lopez in front of you. Paco's been known to put a guy into the fence now and then. So, you know, right there is an intimidation factor. But if you've put yourself in that position, you better be aggressive.
You know, I'm a big Joel Rosario fan, and we all are, that he's a very, very talented rider. But his riding performance overall at Gulfstream has been very disappointing. I like Joel personally. I love him as a rider, but he's got to start doing a better job.
And it seems,
and he can do such a better job.
Of course. I mean, there's been rides where he's just taken your breath away, and he has reached that elite status. But even going back to Saratoga last year, he was just all over the map and very inconsistent.
I think that's the key there, inconsistent. Obviously, he's brilliant. He's got so much talent, but he'll deliver a ride that you go, wow, that's one of the best rides I've ever seen. And in the same day, deliver a ride you just scratching your head.
And this is the reason that Javier Castellano keeps winning Eclipse Awards, because I watched the race on Wednesday where Javier gave a 20-claimer in a turf race a ride that was good enough to win a Breeders' Cup race, and he's doing it all the time. Joel has to get that consistency. He's certainly got it inside of him.
Well, and just what you're saying, a 20-claimer is just as important to a lot of people as is the Grade 1.
Yep. All right, let's wrap things up. Race 8 of 8, back out to Santa Anita. We'll pick up Saturday's Irish O'Brien Stakes in progress. About some turf to end the show. We got the race out of the way at Gulfstream Park, and here we go down the hill on the backside.
Well, keep your eyes on the horse in pink, who will actually end up somehow winning this race, and you won't believe it in mid-stretch. Go West Marie. Gary Stevens gets it done, but I got a feeling Gary didn't feel like this was one of his most proud moments.
No, there were quite a few anxious moments, and you're going to see she winds up in great position coming down the hill, and normally when they hit the crossover where the dirt is, they spread apart, and I think Gary was anticipating more of a spread, and when it didn't happen, and then he tried to pick one spot, and that door got shut, basically it was game over, and somehow the horse found a way to win.
Man, I watched this race last night, and I mean, this is amazing. She's the pink horse going inside, and it's what Richie's talking about. He thinks he's going to get that space to go through inside, and it looks like she's going to get it. His biggest mistake, and he, I'm sure, realized after the race, was not just being a little patient here, letting the horse in green cross over, and then waiting a little bit, but...
Wow. Yeah, no, he was looking to get through, saw that wasn't going to work, came out, went back to see if he can get through again, basically got stymied there, swung out, and got the job done. But this is a case, and you know, obviously, Gary Stevens, Hall of Famer, tremendous talent, somebody I obviously admire. Horse bailed him out here.
No, I'm sure Gary absolutely knows it. That one of the reasons he's a great rider is he knows it. This horse bailed him out. And think about the horse that he had to catch in the front end, the 6 horse. That was the co-favorite. So it's not as though this was a 3-5 shot running against a bunch of tomato cans. She had to do all that while catching the other favorite.
Yeah, and you could see Mike Smith. There was a bit of cat and mouse. 2 Hall of Famers basically race riding each other. It was pretty fun to watch.
Oh, there's no doubt that both of them would like to skunk the other one. They're friends, but on the racetrack, you're not supposed to have any friends.
With the Calbred filly winning the race, albeit narrowly after that eventful trip, who began her career on the East Coast with David Donkin, Funky Monkey, was privately purchased as a Calbred to run out there, and she has found a home. She's been quite good. She's banked over $400K next week. Again, the preps just keep falling by the wayside as we just march on a tear through the month of March. We've got Turfway Park in the spotlight with both the Spiral and the Bourbonnais.
And, oh yeah, I thought maybe Sunland Park, but I think that's the next week.
I think that's Sunday, actually. And I'll be on vacation visiting Mom and Dad down at Gulfstream. The boys will be here. We hope all of you will be here as well. Thanks for tuning in. Always a great time, guys, and we'll see you next time right here on the National Racing Report.